far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 women growing strong. 100 women where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny. Woman, woman.
As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions toward decolonization. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. By Kay Johnson. Welcome to 100 ABC Fireside Chats. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold project initiated by co-authors and co-founders, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, Dr. Denise O'Neill Green, and Donna Jones Simmons. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as our website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. In addition to our fireside chats on topics that matter to our communities, such as education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, trade union, and so much more, we offer biennial book launching galas and biannual symposiums. The co-authors and co-founders would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for attending today's fireside chat. We know that you will find these sessions educational and inspirational. So sit back, relax, and hear from our brilliant and talented honorees.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this afternoon with our fantastic panel guests that we have, with their length of knowledge and breadth of work that they have done within the community and their profession as a whole. So I'm going to have the ladies introduce themselves, because today we have Miss Donna Sinclair, we have Nicole Waldron. Donna, please, please tell me who you are.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here. My name is Dion Sinclair. I'm actually an immigrant from Jamaica, arrived way back in 1976. Currently, I am a registered nurse and the Vice President, Clinical Operations and Chief Nursing Executive at the Center for Addictions and Mental Health. I am also a mother of 3 beautiful girls, a grandmother of an amazing grandson named Michael. I am a daughter, I am a sister, and I am a very passionate Black woman who believes in uplifting my community and helping them through not just trials, but helping them thrive and survive anything that they're going through.
Fantastic. And Nicole, Miss Waldron, please introduce yourself.
Well, how do you introduce yourself after such phenomenalness, eh? And for those of you who don't know me, no, I'm Nicole. And if I were to describe myself and introduce myself to you, first off, I'm a woman who is passionate about helping individuals, live with a victory mindset, and especially living in a victory mindset when they come from a place of feeling defeated. And I really love to see people win, and I'm an advocate at heart. And that being said, I do this through mental health advocacy. I do this through advocating for individuals to live in affordable housing with my unique spot of cooperative housing. And then I sit as an event planner. That's what I do on a main focus. And I do some speaking on the levels of the advocacy, as well as, I have an amazing son, and I am a sister, I am a daughter, and I am just a lover of community and wanting to see our people thrive and live a life with a victory mindset, because that's what we all have to live with in order to succeed. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, fantastic. So we have the community involvement, the victory mindset, and our heavy topic of today, which I know many individuals will take away from, and we're opening up the questions at the end of it. But there's a few things I want to touch on. First, for you, since it is trauma and healthcare. So Nicole, I'll let you go first this time, in the sense of, how do you define trauma? What do you see as trauma?
When I see trauma, and sometimes I will take this even from the caregiver's lens, because I'm a caregiver of a loved one with a mental illness. Trauma is that induced or that continuous stress that keeps piling on one thing on top of the other. That's one of the things I look at as trauma. It's stress compounded, like how we have compound interest when we talk about money. Trauma, our body keeps the score. And when we keep going through event after event, whether it is something where we're dealing with abuse, it could be sexual abuse, it could be financial abuse, it could be just being in an accident. I remember my son was in an accident that created trauma to his body, but that trauma to his body created trauma to his mental health, that created trauma to his spirit. And so trauma comes, I believe, on many levels. And then there's the vicarious trauma, because sometimes we are sitting in spaces, whether we're taking care of people, taking care of our loved ones, we observe something, we're a witness to an incident that causes us to be jolted. And our brain, one of the things as I hand over to Dion is, I want people to remember, when we talk about trauma, we're talking about our brain, not just our mind. Our mind is our brain, and our brain is our mind, and everything is stored up here. And so that mental health and wellness, and Dion is a total specialist in mental health, we have to remember we're not treating something that is ibijibby, as we like to say as Caribbean people. Trauma is real. And we as people, especially as Black people and as Black women, we learn how to suppress what we feel. We learn how to suppress the sadness, suppress
No,
the
we're going to
anger.
come to that. You're going far now. You're going
I know,
far.
eh? So,
Hold it,
but
hold
when
it,
I
hold
see
it, hold
trauma,
it.
those are the things that come to mind. You're hitting our sweet spot, but I'm gonna
Yes,
throw it over to
hold. We're going to get into those little
I'm gonna
nuances
throw over
and
to my
dig really
beautiful
deep
sister
in.
Dion.
Dion, how do you see trauma?
Well, there are two types of trauma. You've got psychological trauma, and you also have the physical trauma. Nicole touched on physical trauma. If I take something and just hit you across the head, you're going to be traumatized. And that's physical trauma, hit, struck, something's happened physically to you. But when it comes to psychological trauma and how it can manifest, there are many different ways. And I'm just going to go through a few. So you have something called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and you have or experience intrusive memories, intrusive thoughts, flashbacks of an incident that has happened before, and it could happen years and years before. Those flashbacks still come. anxiety and panic attacks. Those are parts of psychological trauma, and it can lead to just a heightened state of anxiety and that heightened state of hypervigilance. And panic attacks, you don't know why somebody's going through it, but it could be because of psychological trauma. Same thing with depression. Trauma survivors often experience persistent sadness, emotional numbness, loss of interest in activities, loss of feeling. They feel guilt, they feel shame, even if it wasn't their fault for something happening, but that depression happens from the guilt and shame. You have cognitive changes, difficulty concentrating, you have memory problems, confusion, intrusive thoughts. I'm going to say that again, intrusive thoughts. People say, well, you're just a procrastinator. You can't get anything done. Well, you're busy trying to cope with some psychological trauma. You have behavioral changes, avoidance of people, places, situations. I always tell my friends, if you ever catch me quiet, not talking, not want to be around anybody, get me some help because something's wrong. When your behavior changes so much that someone notices, that could be psychological trauma. Same thing with physical symptoms. People have unexplained aches, unexplained pain, rapid heartbeat, muscle tension, emotional dysregulation for some people. Substance abuse could be a factor because of psychological trauma. People, like, they lean on substances for survival. Alcohol is one of them. And just relationship difficulties. Trauma can impact a person's ability to trust others and maintain healthy relationship. So there's a lot of signs there.
There's a lot. So there's a wide gamut when we talk about the psychological trauma, because we can actually see the physical trauma for the most part, where it manifests itself in bruises or broken bones, et cetera, right? So we know the psychological is the greatest framework of what's that. Nicole, in our previous conversation of what we're having, though, let me jump into, because I'm going to kind of backtrack a bit. When many people think about trauma and the various ways in which you guys so eloquently have explained how it manifests and what can be seen from what can be not seen, when we look at the perspective of individuals and how they are trying to manage, how do you see within the Black community, you touched on a bit, the way in which we try to manage, in particular, you talked about women, but we also have a lot of Black males who are impacted and dealing with the various social economic traumas that are happening also, along with the, relationship trauma. How do we, for the most part, demonstrate our get along to go along type of a mindset from what you can see as Black people in community?
I like to say that we are good at functioning, non-functioning as a community. We're out there and everybody sees us and we're going. And if you look at, and let's deal with the Black community right now, if we go back to the days of slavery and the time of slavery, when we were enslaved, that has created mindsets that has continued generation after generation after generation. And so we have learned how to survive, and in that learning how to survive, to stay alive, we have learned how to manage the trauma we experience physically and the trauma we were experiencing psychologically. And so we fast forward to today, we see it happening. We don't know how to, I think it's really on par now with men and women, how to express ourselves, how to share, one of the things when we deal with our mental health and wellness, we tell boys, don't cry, you need to suck it up. Women have to, girl, get over that. It's so you keep going, why are you acting like that? Suck it up. And we demoralize people when they're actually experiencing pain, when they're actually experiencing stress. And so we have not been always taught healthy ways to release or share what we're experiencing. And the other thing that we did, we demonized and we stigmatized getting mental health professionals to see us, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a psychologist, whether it's a psychiatrist, whether it's you're going to a nurse practitioner. We did not talk about it. And, and we use derogatory words like, you crazy? And, and I use my Trini accent because I feel that Caribbeanness. We use words like, we see somebody being unwell, well, they need to go to the madhouse. And so instead of dealing with what someone is experiencing, whether it is on a low level we start with the depression or we start with anxiety. And you know what I'd say to you? There's sometimes I thank God for COVID because it opened up after so many years, a place that we can start talking about our mental health and wellness. We weren't really talking about it in this way. People weren't putting, the things together. And so when I look at how, as a society, that we deal with the trauma and the stress, we have learned how to cope. And sometimes many of us have no choice because, we talked about, I know we're going to talk about finances. When your finances are impacted and you have to go to work and you have to put a roof over your head and you have to feed your family, you are swallowing and you're keeping back or you're suppressing what you're feeling because you don't have, technically, you do have a choice. But how do you have a choice when you have to feed your family and put a roof over your head?
Right. So
And so those are the things we press through.
We're going to circle back. So Dan, how do you see our community demonstrating or moving forward within the framework of trauma?
Well, one, I will say, I don't say it's denial, but for myself personally, you don't have time. It's like, you know what, something's happened, something bad happened, something traumatic happens. It's like, yeah, but I have to go to work. I got to feed these kids. I got to do laundry, get groceries, do so much other things. I got to help my mom and dad who are like, my dad has dementia. Got to help them out, but I also have to help these kids out. And you don't even have time to take care of your own mental health and well-being. And it's sad in our community because we're so busy. We're busy being busy. And no one took time. Nicole said it perfectly. COVID helped some people stop, slow down, and you had to turn and face whatever you're running from. A lot of times I find you run. And so I'm going to share something personal. In September 2015, I lost my oldest brother to gun violence. He was shot and killed in London, Ontario. Not out of the country, London, Ontario. And at the time, it's like, okay, I'm the tough one. I'm the strong one. So I'm going to be there for mom, be there for dad, be there for sister, be there for brother, be there for niece, nephew, cousin, be there for everyone. And I was just going. I was working full time. I was traveling back and forth. Court started. We traveled back and forth, looking after everyone. And I was in denial that there was something I needed to deal with. I don't even think I took time to grieve because, again, you have a lot to do, not much time. And if you don't get it done, there's consequences. But I hit a wall. I was going through my first foray into my PhD, and I hit a wall. And I went to the professors and I said, listen, I'm struggling here. This was at University of Alberta. I'm struggling. I can't manage. I can't concentrate on my courses. They weren't that receptive to helping me. I literally got told, well, too bad. You're going to have to drop out of the course and come back when you're feeling better. That was traumatizing on top of what I was going through. And I had to turn and face what I was going through and seek help. And for us as a Black community, sometimes it's hard to seek help because of stigma. You think, okay, I'm going to be judged. I'm a mental health professional. I'm a nurse. What am I doing going for help? I should be helping others. And I needed help. I actually needed to talk to somebody about what I was going through. And it wasn't that I was depressed or feeling sorry for myself. I was angry. Like somebody shot and killed my brother. I didn't even know I had that in me because, so help me. I was a bit, I said wasn't suicidal, I was homicidal. Literally, I was an angry person. Why did this happen? How dare this happen? I need to do something about it. So what our community needs to do is turn and face whatever it is, stop and acknowledge it that is happening, and then talk to someone, seek help. I did get help. I'm much better. I've handled my anger problems, but our community, I think we need ways to cope with what we're going through.
There's a healthy dose of anger though, right? So if you if you didn't exhibit any anger, we'd have to say that there's something problematic with, right? So, and as a community, we have our community healers and our community's people that we will have our conversations, because we are so used not to go to the medical practitioners, because a lot of times too, people have faced where medical practitioners have written up reports that have been very detrimental to them within their framework of their employment, right? So as we know right now, there's a huge shortage of even Black psychiatrists that are being sought to be able to understand our issues, to know the nuanced pieces that are being addressed. Because if you look at the many reports that need to be generated either for employment or return to work, et cetera, there's a huge shortage and a backlog of being able to find practitioners that are Black or have any type of real understanding of, anti-Black racism and how it works within our colonial structures of employment and society as a whole. But, Nicole, you have been touching on a few parts, from the caregiver and the aspect of finances, because if, you and I sit on a different side of the COVID argument, but what you raised, though, is very valid in the sense that it gave us that pause. Regardless of which way you looked at it, it created that pause. And it also then created, when we talk about finances, those that weren't willing to take the injection lost their jobs. So the finances came into play. Who was able to sustain? Who was able to utilize their religious accommodations appropriately within their workplace, et cetera, et cetera. Then again, Dion, you talked about having elderly parents, or you may have siblings or children who have fallen into, illness or whichever they may happen. But finances play a big part with regards to trauma and how that plays out. So I don't want to take away from you guys. So Nicole, give us your perspective as a caregiver, and from what you see, how has finances impacted us in our realm of our everyday lives of being able to sustain? I'm going to use that term, right? Because it's a very few that are having no issues or no concerns whatsoever about making sure they make ends meet.
I have this opportunity to sit on the board of the Ontario Caregivers Organization. And I encourage anybody listening right now, if you're a caregiver, go there for some resources, because as you know, in our community, when we're taking care of our parents, our children, we don't see ourselves as caregivers. This is what we do, right? I got to do this. This is in my circle of care. And we also don't know how to ask for help, or sometimes we are ashamed to ask for help. There's the other part of it, you don't know how to ask for help. And I'm going to give the example in mental illness, for example. So if someone had a heart attack or they got a cancer diagnosis, people would rush to your aid. Dion would say, Nicole, did you eat today? You'll be coming over, Yvette. Okay, can I take you to the doctor? Caregivers dealing with with loved ones with a mental illness, you hear chirping. There's very few people that come to you and say, can I help you get some food? Can I take you somewhere? And what they don't realize is that there's this strain that you're going through, that you can't, the trauma now you're going through, and any caregiver, you start going through, you're processing what's happening. And so sometimes you're not even figuring out, I need to pay this bill. You forget stuff, things get put down and you have no one to help you. Then there's the food crisis. Are you eating? Depending on what your loved one is going through, dietary changes have to happen. You may have to have increase in vitamins and going all over and then there's also the transportation. And so it keeps being compounded. And then if someone is employed or not employed, that adds in the other caveat. If you're self-employed, how do you continue to make a living if you're taking care of someone who is unwell? And then when you're employed, do you have benefits? Do you have short-term disability? Do you have long-term disability? Can you take leave? And our society was not, and this is why I say COVID has its advantages and disadvantages. And so I like to focus on the opportunities in the crisis. And so the opportunities in the crisis for me, when I look at COVID, was employers can no longer say, depending on your job, you can't work from home. They're finding ways that people who can work from home can be productive. Individuals who never experienced depression or anxiety, those were the two key pieces. All of a sudden, they used to say, well, think it away or, get over yourself. When people started to figure out what anxiety, because anxiety is a son of a gun by itself, it's very different than depression. It can sneak up on you just like a hot flash for those women who are having menopause. It can sneak up on you like a hot flash, and you don't know, you can't control it. It takes a hot minute to deal with that. And I use those analogies hopefully so people can identify. And we need to be more compassionate as a community. And I'll end with this. A friend said to me, don't wait for your loved one to get in crisis, no matter what the illness is. Create a circle of care. I'm going to call Dion, I'm going to call you. And so when crisis happens, I'm going to call and say, okay, this person is going to help me with the meals. This person is going to help with the transportation. But that person, you, Yvette, are going to make the call to those people who will help with the transportation. I live in a co-op, and that community of care, where if something happens, you can call a neighbor and you can say, I need help. And that's, to me, when it comes to dealing with one of the things that we can do, whether you're living in a house or a co-op, is we need to come back to community. We need to come back to the village and reach out and help each other and stop assuming because Dion looks supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. She's going to work at CAMH. She's at all these committees. She's slaying it. When we see Dion, she has a smile. When we see Dion, Dion gives the most. If you never follow Dion, I don't know if she's public, but her Facebook page always gives the best messages every day. And it's always a picture to make you smile. But because you see Dion like that, you may not have thought about Dion actually went through serious trauma, and she did the work, and she recognized that she needed the help. And that's the thing. It's the stages of trauma, the stages of grief. And she recognized I was in denial and I was angry, and she did something about it. And that's the difference when trauma hits.
So, Dion, we were talking about the financial trauma and how it impacts, but you went into, in the earlier part of speaking about trauma, you went through the various aspects of trauma. So tell us some more then from your perspective and your clinical work that you do. How and what should we be looking at, or should our community better address some of the issues and concerns before it
I think Yvonne froze, but I think you know where she was going.
Yeah. How do we address it? Again, what you said, you have to admit that there's an issue and then turn and face it and seek help. There are places that you can go for help. And even if it's going to a church member, a close friend, a non-judgmental close friend, do that. I wanted to go back to where the finances is, because there is something that we are missing as a community. One thing COVID taught us is how many people did not have an emergency fund, how many people had to rely on CERB to survive. And as a community, you wonder what is going on. Like, I came here as an immigrant, but I was told, go to school, get a job, work hard, and then you get to retire and live happily ever after. Well, guess what? That is not the dream. That is a nightmare for some people, because as hard as you want to work, if you're not financially literate, if you spend everything that you get on stuff, you're going to have a lot of stuff and no money. And people don't know how to save, don't know where to save, don't know how much to save to reach their goals and dreams. And I see a lot of gray hair people in Walmart and McDonald's and Tim Hortons, because that pension that they thought was going to keep them going in their retirement, it can't even pay the rent. And so our community needs financial literacy. The other thing we need is protection for our families. I've seen way too many GoFundMe's in our community.
Yes.
Way too many. We're a smart group of people. Why is it that people are dying and leaving nothing but heartache and just misery for their families?
Insurance. Just the basic thing of taking out life insurance.
Basic. And even not even life insurance, that's one. But what if you get sick and you don't die? As a nurse, you know how many women are touched by cancer right now? Breast cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, men, prostate cancer. The Black community, we're being impacted by cancer. And guess what? So what, you work and you have 66% for your long-term disability. Most people can't survive on 100% of their salary.
Right.
They have 2-3 jobs. So imagine you're not off work, you're sick and you're getting your disability. Yay, you have disability, but that's not enough to feed and pay the bills. You need some critical illness protection. You need life insurance. You need a will, people. And what is so heartbreaking is when you see somebody, they pass away, no will, no life insurance, who suffers? The children, the family, the whole community who has to do a GoFundMe just to bury someone. And then there's nothing left for the other family members to take and carry on. Other communities, they leave inheritance for their children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. What are you leaving for your children or great grandchildren? Don't
And the
let
thing
it be
about it is,
misery.
the thing
Go
about it
ahead.
is, and you hit on the will. And I don't think many people, especially in our community, when we talk about death, it seems that when we talk about death, like dying, and I want to say dying, not the DEBT, when we talk about dying, it seems like a taboo subject because it feels like the talking about the will is like, well, you're talking about death, so we cannot speak about it. And if if you could share a story about why it's so important to have that will, like the people that you are meeting on the job and that are getting diagnosed suddenly, and then they're what do they do? And like any advice in that realm, I think would be
Well,
good.
even right now, if you have nothing, write something down, write your wishes down and sign it. At least there is a piece of paper and evidence that your wishes were down. Because if you don't have a will, guess what? The government steps in and there's something called probate. They appoint a lawyer, they appoint an accountant, and they appoint someone, administrator for your estate. And those people take 30% of whatever that estate is worth.
Right.
Plus, your families don't even get access to your bank account because your bank account, unless it's joint, there's no beneficiary on it. So I can't show up and say, well, I'm Nicole's sister. She's passed, but I should have access. It'd be like, who you? And so it could be years for things to go through probate for your family to get access. And a lot of times it's the breadwinner that passes and the family sitting there not even knowing where things are. It's really important as a community we talk about it because the worst trauma that's happening right now, and I know it from being a nurse because I was it, like ask
Yeah.
me how I know,
Yeah.
work 2 3 jobs. My kids raised themselves, single mom, 3 kids, no child support. I was working so much I would pick up Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. Guess who wasn't there at Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter? Mom. She was in the hospital working, looking after other people, trying to make ends meet for the kids. But at the end of the day, your children actually need you. So, how to cure that poverty mindset is some financial literacy, is finding someone you trust, where to invest, what to invest, and also have a way for your money to actually work for you just as hard for you as you do for it. So you need to invest so you can earn some passive income. Nicole, you're self-employed. If you take a vacation, guess what? Your money takes a vacation,
Listen,
right?
isn't that the truth? This is why Nicole hasn't taken a vacation. And Nicole, as a caregiver, cannot take a vacation because at the end of the day, and as many caregivers, we have thousands of caregivers and individuals that are just having a really hard time making ends meet. And I like the fact that you talk about let's get the will in place. And the other trauma that we talk about is when we talk about trauma, is the trauma of trust because people, we look at our community and because, one or two people have done certain things that are not
Nefarious.
integral, we
Mm-hmm.
have used that, and that has been used against us as not actually having the integrity of saying, okay, I'm gonna get the financial advice I need. I'm going to get that I need so that I make sure that I have the pocket for where I need to go. And I think that's where also trauma has played a factor in our community not coming together and getting the financial foundation and I think so, Chu, you know what? I recognize, and Yvette, welcome back. What I recognize is and I don't know if it's happening in your grouping of friends. We talk about all sorts of stuff, but we really don't say, okay, Nicole, so are you investing? Here's what I'm doing. This is what has worked. Here's who I'm using. It's like that's almost like the taboo subject of religion. And it's also like a taboo subject of the taboo subject of putting a will together.
Yep.
And so my desire now is, can we just start talking about this in our casual friendships and saying, what are you doing? any ideas, because there's the shame of not having. But you know me, I'm an advocate for caregivers. When life happens, when life is lifing, or if you get unwell and life happens with a sudden illness, and you don't have, and the savings run out, and you don't have income or investments that can help you, you feel like, how can I go and ask for help?
Mhm.
And yes, we have to do the GoFundMe. And that in itself, let's talk about trauma. Asking for help. When somebody comes and says, so, Nicole, how can I help you? I really want to say, well, I really need I need this, I need some funds, I need some groceries, and I feel ashamed.
Dion, what do you see?
Well, I see that there are solutions out there that we as a community need to just suck it up and trust and take a hold of some of those solutions. Because other communities come to this country, they are moving leaps and bounds ahead of the Black community. There's a thing called critical illness, Nicole. It covers 25 illnesses. You can get anything from 25,000 all the way to 2 million worth. It pays you if you have heart attack, stroke, cancer, aneurysm, Alzheimer's, blindness, coma. There's so much it covers, but as a community, we don't want to hear about it. Here's the thing that happened to me, and I'm just going to be personal. When I started my journey for financial literacy, I was in debt because I learned how to spend. I was a really good spender, but no one taught me about savings. And I had to go seeking to learn. So now I know, and I share as much as I can with anyone who would listen. The banks, what do? They hand you a credit card. They handed me a credit card when I was a student. I just went to college. First thing, they gave me a credit card. And guess what? Where are all the payday loan places? In every high priority neighborhood, on every corner.
Yeah.
At a like 600% interest rate. No one teaches people, new immigrants, refugees, anyone who looks like us, stay away from them, because owing credit at those high interest rates is a noose around your neck. And that is traumatizing enough, because you feel you never can get out from under it. But you can. There's solutions to get you out from under it.
And some of the solutions, there are solutions, but some of the solutions are also very, can also put you in problems too, because as you said, they're very, they like to prey on our communities, right? So the interests are high, things seem very low, but it becomes very cyclical in this path of you trying to get yourself out, that things get ruined. And what someone has also brought up, to ask for help. Before, we all come from the Caribbean. We all know that our parents used to have, the local trust system, right?
So
Your
partner.
trust kids
Susu.
are, right? And
Susu.
not even the susu, sometimes not even that. It's just, I knew that, Nicole,
Yeah.
my peer day is Friday, so sister, run
Well,
me a
this-
500,
Yes,
says
yes.
500 coming back to you. Okay, Dion, what's that, right? Like, even those simple things, I have to say, I have a very good circle of friends, right? I have a very good circle of friends, because there's also being an educator, you take on families, right? So I have families that know they can call me, and some of their stuff can get taken care of, whether it's coming directly out of my bank account or I'm reaching out to other people who are given. So we're taking care of other people, but it is very hard. And in particular with our community, this whole, putting this face forward that things are great, everything is working well, for individuals to ask. And then even what we're seeing right now, one of our major organizations, we still have the issue of, well, who do we trust, right? So, and it's not just, I'm not calling one name, because it trickles through everywhere, but that trauma exists because people have to wonder, am I going to be looked at someone that cannot manage money? Whereas some people can manage other people's money, not their own.
Mhm.
Right? Is it an issue then? Are you not someone worthy of being a leader or can run something because you may have had a bankruptcy back in the past? Because that's how the system is set up, right? You have a bankruptcy, it's very hard for you to be put in any positions of trust, because they deem, right? So your past continually always haunts you until when that is fully erased.
And that's the trauma.
Right,
That's the trauma.
That is the trauma that continues to build, and then other facets. So my apologies, we're having some type of windstorm in my area, so it keeps saying unstable, and you guys freeze on me once in a while. So just apologize if you see I duck out. It wasn't by my own cause
And
here.
can I add one thing to what you were saying? The other
Sure.
piece, and just tacking onto what Dion was saying, There's the piece of burden. When you feel like you're going to be a burden to someone, you're very hesitant to ask for help, even though you need the help, and feeling judged. And sometimes no one is going to judge you. And what I want to say to our friends and loved ones listening, if you know don't assume everybody's doing good, not because you see me smiling, right? If you know someone, you know they're going through a time, don't ask them what they need. Sometimes you need to just come and say, you know what? Here, can I take you to the grocery? Can I take you to dinner? Send a gift card. Okay, Nicole, financially, I know things must be challenging because no matter what, how much savings you have, Dion, you had a diagnosis, what is your meal plan? So how can we help? How can we come together? Can we do some bulk shopping? You know what I do? I go to Costco or wherever I go. No name, Costco, you could come and sponsor the show if you want. I'm just saying. Putting it out there. Um, but how can we bulk buy together? How can we come and create a communal kitchen? And so sometimes we want to ask, and I'll be honest, sometimes people use the excuse that somebody said, well, they didn't need help, not to help. It is time we stop acting anti. So this is when I get on my thing, because I am so tired of people saying, well, you didn't say what you need. I don't need to tell you everything that I need.
But we
All have, we all, it's better that I say no. But I'm telling you, when somebody is stressed, because we're talking about trauma, and one thing I can tell you with trauma is when you are stressed, you forget, you don't know how to ask, and the burden of asking is worse. And I can tell you, I was burning water. Imagine burning water. I forgot how to cook. When the trauma hit me so hard, I remember looking at something like a macaroni pie, I'm making that all the time, right? And I didn't have cheese. Do you know I stayed at that pasta for 30 minutes and I didn't know what else to make with it? And so I just took everything back and I put it back in and I ordered Uber Eats.
Yeah. So
Right?
like to springboard off of that though, I know we didn't talk about how so the manifestations, right, of the stress and the trauma. So in your case scenario, the forgetfulness because you're thinking of so many things that are happening. For Black women, the alopecia that's happening, the great hair loss, and that's going through that trauma within itself that people don't understand why people are wearing wigs or why their hair is covered over or doing wraps and that, and within that, right, the whole the bit of the depression that come in for some people. Dion, you're talking about before the weight gain because your diet is not the same. People that are having lack of sleep, insomnia is happening because your mind is racing on whatever might be transpiring, or especially for those dealing with allegations and stuff. So their mind's thinking about document paperwork, what happened when, creating their list. So you're not sleeping. So this trauma manifests so many ways, right? Like there's so many aspects of the trauma in our community. And then let's go into the access of healthcare a little bit, right? So when we talk about so enough of the things that I just stated, but people aren't able to access the care that they require, right? Either financially, they don't have the funds, whatever the case might be, that even to get a dentist, even to get prescriptions, or right, those components, and then even just the access in to see a really good health practitioner for whatever might be happening. So Dion, I'll throw it over to you for a bit here.
No, and you are correct that it's very hard right now, just even access primary care. I can, full disclosure, it was 2 weeks ago, I finally found a family doctor. I'm a chief nursing executive. I've been looking for the last 5 years and been on just about every list, even in my community. My doctor in COVID, she just retired. I'm done. She's gone. She's 41, 42. And so I was looking, I just finally found one, but there are clinics out there. And when we think healthcare versus illness care, for healthcare, there's things you can do to try and prevent some of the manifestations of the psychological trauma. Things like making sure, if you can, eat a balanced diet, eat at home. I bring my lunch to work. I'm a VP. I still bring my lunch to work. I'm not buying fast food because a lot of it is not food. I'm just going to say that. physical activity, even if it's getting up, go for a walk. You can do that for yourself. Grab a friend. It actually works when you have company. Walk together, talk together, laugh together, whatever it is. Physical activity will help. Just breathing fresh air will help. So there's
Mhm.
lots of other things you can do. Do some mindfulness exercises. Breathe. You don't have to join a gym. If you got a smartphone, if you got a TV, YouTube has a lot of exercise programs that you can just plug into. You don't have to pay for. So people go, oh, I don't have a gym membership. Body weight exercises you can do. Google, YouTube, there's a lot. Body weight
Go
exercise.
for a walk.
It
Just go for a
Go for that
general
walk.
walk.
So
Yeah.
there's a
But
lot
here's
of
the thing
things
you
you
just
can
said.
do for health. Don't wait till you get sick and then somebody put you on like a cardiac heart program or weight loss program. There's things you can do. And yes, it's hard to get into primary care, but keep talking to people because somebody knows somebody who knows somebody else who can get you in to see so and so.
Nicole, you're going to say?
And I said, the fear, we need to stop moving in the fear of not being able to move. I can tell you, like, I deal with, one of the things I deal with is fibromyalgia, and it can be very debilitating at times. And what I recognized was, and I didn't, when somebody had to bring it to my attention, because I said, I can't walk the way I love to walk, but I can't walk the way I used to walk. And because that was my form of exercising, I wasn't able to think past it until somebody gave me some, just as when Dion said, well, go to YouTube. And that's what they had to say. Well, go to YouTube, do upper body stuff, do other things. But when you're locked into one way of doing things, sometimes you need someone to come and jog your memory and say, do something a different way, because you can stay so focused. But then
Mhm.
when Dion spoke about going for the walk, one of the things it is important, I believe, for people to look at, and Dr. Chrissy Doyle Thomas is a great person to follow. She has really great information and sound bites on Instagram. The neuroplasticity of our brains. We tell people go for a walk, but they don't know when they go for a walk or when they exercise, it's actually changing the structure of their brain, right? And that is, I think, what is key for people. When we tell, our little ones, if we really start them from one young exercising and develop a culture, we have to start changing the culture of how we operate as human beings. But we have to start it young, how we eat, what sugar is doing to our body is the inflammation in your body. So when Dion says go exercise, don't just exercise because it's a thing. Exercise because you love your body. Exercise because when you do it, it's going to do something up here that's going to affect something in here. And they're in tangent with each other. You have to have, I say to people, if you know my business, the victory speaks, create a mindset, a vision for your health. What is the vision for your mental health? What is the vision for your physical health? What is the vision for your family's health? Let's just deal with health and then work it through. Be intentional about it. Get ideas like we're sharing right now. How you're going to cultivate that vision to get to where you need to go.
And I think you're segueing us into where I'm going to say, ladies, come up with, as time's going, we want to look at a few questions. What do we need to do? How can we address this? We've touched on some points already, but within your wrap up, because then I want to just go to a few questions that we do have here. How best do you deal with the trauma? So Nicole, how best are you dealing with trauma in your life? And what other ways would you give as an advice to others to try to deal with that? So we know the walk-in has just been put forward in that. What else do you suggest?
I would suggest doing an honest self-care check of yourself. Be honest with yourself. And if you have somebody in your life outside of your doctor, do it with your doctor as well. But get someone who you really trust and say, how am I doing? How am I showing up? Because sometimes you might be thinking you're showing up pretty good, but they're seeing some stuff, but they don't, you're not being honest with yourself. But you have to do, I would suggest also doing a mind fast. People fast from food, but what are you saying to yourself? What are you not saying? What is the language when something happens to you Do you first get angry? Do you first use negative words? Do you get quiet? Who are you? Because sometimes we forget we have to pause and go back and revisit ourselves. Come back into relationship with self and be non-judgmental towards yourself. Give yourself some grace, give yourself some self-compassion, and then humble yourself. Humble yourself. Say yes to you. Like the why in victory is about yielding to the process and being very humble. And sometimes saying yes to you means saying no to some other things, no to certain types of food, no to certain types of behaviors, saying no to other people so you can say, okay, I can't do this today because I just need to lie in my bed and do jack all, and that's my vacation. I don't have money to go on a cruise or whatever, but what I can do is I can take myself away from it. I can go get some Epsom salts at the dollar store, pour it into the bathtub. If I don't have a bathtub, well, get a bucket and put your feet in it, because we will give ourselves limitations not to take care of ourselves. And find somebody that really loves you. And if it's not in your circle, go get a new circle.
Dion, what are your suggestions?
Everything Nicole said, and it's not my saying, but I've heard this: you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yep.
So you have to take care of yourself. I do affirmations. I am a grandma, but usually I start off all my speaking engagements saying, do not let my youthful good looks fool you. I'm closer to 60 right now. I got a 35-year-old who's also a nurse. However, I get up in the morning, I am gorgeous, I'm determined, I'm unstoppable, I'm invincible, I am loved, I am gifted. Those affirmations I pour into myself because I live alone. And so I'm going to love myself. It's
You live
not
with yourself. You don't
selfish.
live alone.
Yeah,
You live with
there you
yourself.
go. I live with myself. But those affirmations are very helpful. Your mindset is helpful. When it comes to your finances, do a budget. Learn how to do a budget. Again, there's budget softwares out there. I have a group that we get together and we do all these things for finances. Teach people how to do a budget. Teach people how to start savings, even if it's a small savings plan of $25 a pay, $50 a month. People say, well, I can't do that. No, you got to pay yourself first. If you don't do that, all you're doing is working to pay bills and then you die. Seriously, that's not life. That's not living. And really, when you're an employee, you're never going to be wealthy. You need to have a business. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to have somewhere you can take advantage of this Canadian tax code, because I know so many nurses, we work the 2-3 jobs, we work all that overtime and the extra shifts. And then at tax time, the government comes and said, excuse me, ma'am, you've worked yourself into a brand new tax bracket.
Right,
You owe
that's
us
right.
another $17,000. And it's like, say what? So all those extra shifts you picked up, you were working for $2.49 an hour. That's way below minimum wage. You got to find another way. And if you don't know, you ask someone, you
Yeah.
talk to someone, reach out to me. I hope my information is in there, because at 50 is when I went on this journey for financial literacy. And because I am a stubborn person, I had to learn it for myself. I went and found out how to save and invest, how to do a budget, how to make sure I have passive income coming in. So even if I take time off, I'm working on my retirement plan. I wanted freedom 55. I'm past 55. So it's now freedom 60. That's my goal. I got to get there.
Yeah.
And Nicole knows I exercise. No one taught me. I read some books, I watch some shows, but I work out. I work out because, again, this is the only body I have, and I got to be kind to it. So those are the things you need to do.
No, very good, ladies. And it's very true though. Your health is number one. Like regardless if we're talking about spiritual, mental, but the physical body plays such a massive role, right? Like once you happen where you cannot have mobility, it becomes a great issue, because then you're relying on others to assist you. So wherever we can try to move, no matter how slow, or if it's just upper bodies rather than the lower body or the whole body, we have to make sure we're dealing with that. I just want to address a few things that was in the chat, and
Hold on, before you go there. Dion said she was doing affirmations.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to add this piece. People think affirmations are just this ABGB kind of thing. I use that word ABGB. You know, it doesn't matter. Affirmations changes the molecular structure of your brain. So the same way when you are having a toxic thought, because I just want to come back to that trauma piece. If you keep having repetitive toxic thoughts, it's creating that dark matter. It literally creates a dark matter in your brain. When you are doing affirmations that are positive, it starts eating away of that darkness and the light starts coming back in and the neurons start back building. So the neuroplasticity of your brain changes every day, every day. So when Dion, whether she believes it or not, your brain doesn't know if you believe it or not. What your brain knows is that you're giving it something, the neurons are getting a different firing system at them. That's light. And just imagine you're just firing lights at your brain. Hey, love. And so it's growing differently. And all the thorns and thistles that grow on the stem cells change. And so if anything you got out of today, it's the shifting of the mindset. And the shifting of the mindset is what is going to help you deal with your trauma. But first, you have to recognize that you are in trauma. And if you see somebody and you recognize somebody's experiencing trauma, find somebody to help you, like a Dion Sinclair. Yvette is very well schooled, call and say, how can I, there's so many free lines out there. How can I help someone who needs help and doesn't know how they need help? How can I approach them? Do not let your loved ones be left not taken care of.
And as the chat is saying though, and also don't judge by the outward appearances that you see. Like some of us forget there are people who are doing extremely well. So yes, they already have all the designer, everything. So they are well coiffed in the way in which they present. And a lot of people like to look good. If you look good, you also can feel good. So there are many manifestations, but if we know people are going through something, if you already know there's something happening, whether a job loss, a illness, a death, we know to reach out. And even sometimes if it's not someone that you're close to, but you're adjacent through friends or proxemics, to the points that you guys have made, hey, send a gift card, or hey, just drop something off, which even reminds me, I need to drop something off at someone.
Send some flowers, Yvette. You send some flowers. When last did you write a card? And
well, that too,
in the mail?
That too, but flowers I won't do because flowers die. I'd rather give the
give
gift
a plant, but you give something that grows,
something, right? So things like that we need to do. But ladies, this was a really, really
wait, don't go yet. One thing.
Time's gonna end on us. So
I know that's one more thing. That you said judgment. And I pray that, especially we mentioned violence against women. I really want us to be very mindful that women that are in violent situations, we tend to judge them. Do not judge a woman because you do not see her leaving her abuser. Be very kind and gentle to those people.
Grace.
Because you never know who it is and how the abuse is showing up.
And let us try to help them get out of the abuse though too.
Yes.
We're not going to encourage staying, no matter if it's children or finances, right?
Yeah, but it's trauma and you have to understand the trauma of it, but that's a conversation we need to have. The trauma.
Yeah, that is the next one because it is happening both in young and old, right? So we really need to have that. Ladies, it has been a pleasure. There's so much that we can go into this. We have scratched the surface. We've done our best to make sure that we can align certain things and have the discussion. As you guys know, when we go offline from the public view, we will have our back conversation with those who are here with us. So I ask everyone to stay with us and have a really good conversation. Those who are going to be rewatching this at some particular point, I want to thank my guests that are here today. So Dion Sinclair and Nicole Waldron, women that have a depth of knowledge and understanding, and a wide array of recommendations that people can do to make our world that much better and your place much safer for what you do. So have a great day. Take care of yourself, and we will continue on next day. Be well.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You one